Mastering modal verbs, the key to giving and asking for advice. Hello learners! Today, we'll be diving into the world of modal verbs and their role in giving and asking for advice. Modal verbs are a special type of verb that we use to express things like ability, possibility, permission, and of course, advice. They are an essential part of English language, and knowing how to use them can make your English sound more natural and fluent. So, what exactly are modal verbs? They're a category of helping or auxiliary verbs that express necessity, possibility, permission or ability. Examples include can, could, may, might, should, must, shall, will, and would. When it comes to giving and asking for advice, the most commonly used modal verbs are should, ought to, had better, and could. Should and ought to are interchangeable in many contexts and express a recommendation or advice. For instance, if a friend asks for advice on improving English vocabulary, you could say, "You should read more books," or "You ought to read more books." They both imply a suggestion or advice that reading more books can help improve vocabulary. Moving on to had better, it is a bit stronger than should and ought to. It implies that there might be negative consequences if the advice is not followed. For example, if it looks like rain, you could say, "You had better take an umbrella." Here, not following the advice could result in getting wet. Could is often used to give advice in a more polite or less direct way. It softens the tone of the advice and is especially useful when you don't want to sound too pushy. For instance, "You could try yoga" is a gentler way to suggest someone to try yoga. When asking for advice, you can use modal verbs to make your request clear and polite. You can say, "What should I do?" or "What ought I to do?" or even, "What could I do?" Each of these sentences requests advice, but the tone can change slightly depending on which modal verb you use. And there you have it. The use of modal verbs in giving and asking for advice is an essential part of English communication. Remember, practice makes perfect. Try using these modal verbs in your day-to-day conversations to get the hang of them. Should, ought to, had better, and could will be your best friends when it comes to sharing or seeking advice. Until next time, keep learning and keep practicing.